Hello there again. This is Dr. John Hawkins, Sr., coming to you from Gateway Counseling Center. And welcome again to another edition of our Overcomer blog. You know, in our last video blog, I was talking to you about starting strong, and we were talking about how to maintain a healthy brain at the start of the year and carrying it on through the balance of our life. And so we're going to continue the second part of this. I mentioned to you that I came across an article from Harvard Medical School that was dealing with just this issue here. And, you know, you think of doctors and a medical school and you think of things as being kind of complex, but this really isn't rocket science. You know, the points that they brought out were very basic, very simple. Anybody could relate to them. And so I think all of us, we want to stay as healthy as we can for as long as we can. And our mental health is going to affect our physical health and vice versa. And so they talked about 6 habits that we could get into that would help us maintain and grow our brain health. And so a lot of times we think about, well, these are pretty simple. We've taken a look at 3 so far. Eat a plant-based or clean diet, exercise regular, and number 3, get enough sleep. Well, those sound easy enough. And the question sometimes we wonder is, well, why do not more people do that? Why do we pick up these bad habits that are bad for us physically and they're bad for us mentally? I guess you could say a lot of different reasons: lack of knowledge, lack of urgency. People don't see everything is fine right now. I don't see the need to make a change. I guess we could blame it on human nature, just how we are as people. But most people don't make a change in their life without a motivational crisis. Something that is creating more pain than the pleasure I get out of staying the same. The problem with our brain and the health is we don't want to wait for the motivational crisis. We don't want to wait till there's a catastrophe with our brain. It might be too late by then. We want to start now. You know, you can't change the past. You can't do anything about that, but you can start now. So let's take a look at the last 3 of these 6 common sense steps that you can engage in to give you good brain health for the balance of your life. Here's number 4. Challenge your brain. Challenge your brain. You know, I've said in part 1 that we're made to move. We're made to move physically and we're made to move mentally. You know, you've heard the old adage, use it or lose it. Well, that's true not just for muscles, but it's true for the brain. You know, if you don't use your muscles, it doesn't take very long for the atrophy to set in. And it's the same with your brain. You've got to use it to keep it sharp. You can't just retire and veg out in front of the TV set and not think. You're going to get old real quick, mentally and physically. And so, you know, there's what we call in our brain neuroplasticity. And basically the idea behind that is everything you do with your brain changes it, particularly every new thing. Every new piece of knowledge, every new skill, anything new you do with your brain is going to change it. It's going to create new neurons and new neural pathways. As we get older, these neurons die off. So we want to keep creating new ones. And so to keep our brain, you know, not shrinking, but growing, staying in shape. So as we get older, it doesn't, you know, shrink. You know, as we're working out physically, we're working our muscles, and the muscles grow in resistance training, and the same is true for the brain. So we want to develop the idea of being a lifelong learner, that I'm going to be learning new things. You know, they say, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, not necessarily so. And some people have that attitude, oh, I can't learn anything new, or I know it all. Well, that's not going to be good for your brain. Realize you can always learn something new in life. Learn to read more, read some books, listen to podcasts, learn a new skill, With the internet and YouTube, you can learn anything. Audit a college class, learn a new language, learn to play a musical instrument, travel someplace, see new things. They're just a few ideas. And you might say, well, that's ridiculous. I'm too old to do that. Well, then that's the problem. You don't want to be saying that you're too old. I realize that sometimes we get some physical problems and we can't do what we used to do, but we can still keep our brain active. We tend to be creatures of habit, and so we don't like change. So we tend stay in our ruts. I mean, I do that, tend to go to the same restaurants. And my wife is the one who gets me out of that. Say, why don't we try this place over here? And it was up to me, I'd probably just eat at the same one all the time. But she'll take me to a new one and like, oh, hey, I really like that. And then we'll go back to that. And that's what you have to do. You know what they say about a rut? It's just a grave with both ends knocked out. And you've heard me say this before. Listen, you don't want to die before you're dead. You want to keep living as long as you have life. And so challenge the brain. Find things that you can do that will challenge your brain. Number 5 is this: nurture social contacts. Now, some people are introverts and some people are extroverts. So we all have different personalities. The extrovert, they love being around people. Being around people just recharges them. The introverts, they can be around people, but it's going to drain their batteries and they need their alone time. So it doesn't really matter, though, whether you're an extrovert or introvert. None of us like being lonely. And so, our mental batteries, if you're the introvert, you're going to need some time to recharge your mental batteries. If the extrovert, you're going to recharge around people. But we want to go beyond just being around people. Studies show that people live longer and healthier lives when they have friends and some social relationships in their life, because we're made for relationships. You don't have to have a lot of relationships. If you're that introvert, you could have a couple good ones or deep ones, but we want to have some relationships in our life. Now, some people have come to the point where they don't want any relationships. And you might ask, well, why do people isolate like that? Isolation isn't good. It's not only good for your brain, it's not good for your mental health, but there's a reason. Some people got hurt by someone, maybe hurt very deeply, or felt a sense of betrayal on someone that was really close. So they're not going to take the risk anymore getting into a relationship. Some people don't think anybody'd want to be their friend. They got some self-image issues, and because they don't like themselves, they think, well, nobody else would like me. Nobody else would want to be, my friend. But maybe it's lack of knowledge. They don't know how to make friends, or they don't know where to go to try to make friends. They've got the same mindset when they were back in high school and they were on the out crowd, and they felt like, nobody liked me or cared about me. And so they still feel that way as an adult. And so you have to start, number one, by telling yourself and believing, I really don't like being alone or lonely. That's not a good feeling. And so then you have to put yourself in a place where there are people. It's like going fishing. You got to go where the fish are. I like to fish sometimes with my grandson, but it gets a little boring when you're not catching fish. And so I'm like, hey, let's change lakes. Let's go someplace else. And the scripture says this: a man who wants friends has to show himself friendly. So I have to figure out, well, how would I do that? How would I show myself friendly? And at the same time, you don't make friends by trying to make friends. You don't wear a sign, will you be my friend? That tends to not work. You make friends by serving others, by helping others. Maybe volunteer someplace where people need some help. Maybe go to your church or get involved. Maybe smile a little bit more. Have a more open body language. Be friendly when you're around people. Ask people questions. Get them talking. People like to talk about themselves. You know, you can just ask some open-ended questions and they'll talk about themselves, and then that'll help you find something in common with them, and you can ask them more, questions. It doesn't take long to catch on how to do that. And don't wait or expect everyone to reach out to you or to come to you. You be the one who reaches out. You take charge to say, well, I'm the one who wants friends, so let me start reaching out to other folks. And then have patience as you consistently do these type of things. Don't expect it to happen, overnight. You'll take one step and get a little closer to somebody, and then you find some things in common, then you'll take another step and you'll get a little closer again, and you just keep doing that. Don't be afraid to accept an invitation to go out with somebody or go to some event with somebody. And somebody may reject you, but don't take it personal. Everybody has their issues, their bad days. Just have the mindset, look, I know I'm a nice person. If somebody doesn't want to be my friend, I'll go on to somebody else. They're the one that's going to, lose out. Don't automatically get down on yourself. Don't automatically think there's something wrong with me versus, hey, maybe there's something wrong, with them. And so once you start to develop a friendship, give people space. Don't smother them. Allow them to have other friends. Just take it step by step. And that's why you want to have more than just one friend. So if that friend's busy, you can go to another friend. If you focus on others and do some of these things we've talked about, eventually the friendships will come. But they won't come if you isolate yourself and you don't want to be around people for whatever some of those reasons like we talked about. If you're growing a flower or a plant, you have to water it, you fertilize it. Some people talk to it, they nurture it, and that's the way friendships are. You do the same thing with them. And here's the last of those 6 common sense steps to keep good brain health. Manage your stress. All the steps that we've given you so far are all about how to protect your cognitive function as you age. Engaging in intellectual and challenging activities, keeping your brain agile. But one of the things that's a major enemy to our physical health and our mental health is stress. And life is full of stress. We're not going to escape it. We can't live stress-free. Stress is a fact of life. It could be financial stress, physical stress, vocational, relational, family stress, things going on in society. And many times these are just things that are beyond our control. We can't control the stressors that can come into our life, but we can control our response to the stressors. And that's really the secret about stress. It's not eliminating all stress from your life. That's an impossibility. But I can decide and choose how I'm going to respond to them. Now, I may have to think through that and process that a little bit. I'm not going to just automatically, go to the doctors and get a diagnosis of cancer and say, oh, praise God, I'm so glad for that. No, you might have to process through some emotions, but eventually I can decide how I'm going to respond. There are plenty of unhealthy ways to respond. I can get angry, I can get anxious, I can get depressed, I can ruminate and fixate in a negative way about that stressor. I can do things in a negative way and take my negative emotions out on people that are closest to me and damage the relationships. I can turn to substances, whether it's alcohol or drugs, to try to cope with the stress, or any kind of addictive or unhealthy behavior. It can be eating or gambling or shopping or sex or work. The list could, go on forever. But what I want to find is a better way to deal with the stressful situations. Develop some healthy stress coping mechanisms. And so, doing some things that don't do damage to my brain. because the chronic stress just continues, because that's what, will happen. It'll affect our sleep. It sets up a negative cycle, and it leads to all kinds of other problems. So we want to find some better ways to deal with the stress. And I've talked before about exercise. Exercise is a great stress reliever. It's a great natural antidepressant, anti-anxiety. I want to learn to ask myself the question, what can I control? What can I not control? And the stuff that I can't control that's stressing me, since I can't control that, no matter how angry I get, no matter how anxious I get, I'm going to have to find a way to hand that off. A person of faith can just say, well, I'll hand that off to God, and then I'll focus on what I can control. If you're not necessarily a person of faith, you'll have to visualize some way. I'm throwing that thing away. I can't control it anyway. And then put my energies where they can benefit me on something I can control. And one thing we can control is our mind, how we think. And we're always thinking and we're always talking to ourselves. And so what I can learn to do is change my thoughts about how I'm thinking and responding to that. Now, you might need a therapist to help you on that a little bit, but that is within your power. Same way with prayer or meditation, learning how to relax, how to take a break from my normal routine, how to get away a little bit, be able to push that reset button, in my mind. And it's not automatic when you first try it, but as you work at these things, you'll find healthier ways to de-stress, and then you'll find a healthier brain. Well, these are 6 simple steps to protect your brain health. I hope that they're a help to you. And if we can be any help to you here at Gateway, you feel free to give us a call. Just go on the website, gatewaycounseling.com, and our commitment is to help you in whatever that area is, to help you keep on being an overcomer. Have a great week, and I'll look forward to seeing you before too long again. And just remember, you are an overcomer. God bless and goodbye now.